guys, Theresa here from theresamonro.com, and I just wanted to touch base on an important issue that comes up quite a bit, and sometimes it comes up when our friends who are into the spiritual community and using certain terms want to be supportive, but sometimes don't fully understand what terms are. So this video is about manifestation versus dark night of the soul. So here's what I want to discuss with you. There was a period of time with a client that wasn't ever particularly fitting in to traditional work roles of working like 40 hours a week and finding herself a bit of a catalyst wherever she went, because she naturally was doing healing work and intuitive work and seeing things on certain levels and where things needed to go, but seeing stuff at a deeper level that other people could not see. She was so gifted at seeing things on a deeper level that she didn't quite realize that other people couldn't see things at the same level. So it wasn't that these managers were necessarily lazy, although some of them have been. It's just when you're gifted in certain ways to be able to see to certain levels, because that's what you're supposed to be working with. People are given those gifts to be able to dive deeper, like naturally. Those are the people that don't need to dive deep. Those are the people that need to get to the shallow end every now and again for some contrast. But this particular individual was having a really rough day and was not realizing that she had manifested and was manifesting out of and resonating out of her current situation in terms of work. So it was coming to a close where either she found a new job or she was going to get fired from where she was. Because sometimes it's just like, okay, you've finished resonating here. It's time for you to move to something that's more fun, something that you've asked for. And so if you haven't taken action, this particular individual was not sure whether or not it was like, oh, we gotta, anchor in, but she hadn't realized that she had asked for something different on many occasions, and it was starting to really resonate out of where she was. So she ended up, having a tough day, and the managers were like giving her a tough time because they didn't want her. They were a little bit upset with her ability to be able to see what was going on, and saw her kind of as a threat because she was doing better than her other employees, than the other employees who had been there for like 10 years. She was out managing the managers. Like, she was super gifted for where they were, and they were okay. Like, these people were known for hiring C students. They bragged about it because they could pay them less compared to where she was, which is like an A+ honor roll student. A+ honor roll students tend to outperform C students, okay? It doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. It's just typically in the American school system, it has to do with performance. And there's a certain personality that gets like A+ and that sort of thing. So it's, you're naturally resonating differently anyway. But it was time, and that particular day, she was they kind of beat up on her a little bit, and she was really tired. And so what it looked like was they were just trying to let her know, like, from a spiritual perspective, they were giving her the push, like, you're not appreciated here, time to move on. Now, she took some of it a little bit personally, and it wasn't, there wasn't really anybody around to tell her, like, hey, congratulations, you're ready for something different, for a place that vibrates better, where you dive with your tribe and the people that you work with. And so she came home, and she was really, after being upset, she wanted to speak with some people that understood her. So she called one of her friends that was spiritual. Her friend had the nerve to tell her that this friend of hers didn't know any better. Sorry for the stuff, but her friend really didn't know any better. And there's some of the fog coming in from one of the other islands where the volcano is going off, so sometimes it gets in your throat a little bit, so that's what's going on here. Anyway, her friend told her, oh, well, you're just having a dark night of the soul, you need to surrender to God, blah, blah, blah. the friend didn't fully understand what was happening in her life and used the actual term of dark night of the soul against her, in a way of like judgment. And it's interesting because this friend of hers didn't understand fully what dark night of the soul was, and if she really checked in intuitively, she would have noticed, oh, you're just manifesting something different. You're coming out of one situation and moving into another. Like there isn't anything wrong with you. You just move more quickly. You're shifting out of that and into something that's better for you. Congratulations. Like, put out your applications. It doesn't mean like, because sometimes in the American system they'll tell you, oh, you need to have a job for this in such amount of time, or there's something wrong. Whereas what was more applicable for her is she was shifting out of the situation after like 2 years, and it was time to go do something more fun. So this is where sometimes people in the spiritual community can use these words and really do damage, because this particular client, when she came to me, I explained to her what was happening, and it can be a really empowering experience to say, this is what's truly happening for you, and this is what your friend is stating, is kind of what they refer to as parroting. They just use phrases, they want to help you, but they're also judging you, and it's kind of a complicated situation. Parroting does not always include judgment, but this in particular situation, this woman was a little bit jealous of the gifts of the woman that was getting ready to move out of that particular career selection. So it's interesting, and it's also proof that it's important the kind of people that you have around you can be really, if you're a little bit confused in the moment, to have somebody around you that can provide you with the support and actual true insight that you need, that can be more empowering. So that's sort of just there's a how do you know the difference? And part of it is because she was feeling really uncomfortable. Now it was just an intuitive thing that I just they started talking to me and I knew what was happening there. But also, sometimes people just are using spirituality as a hobby, and they don't really know or understand what these terms mean. So dark night of the soul is a little bit different, and we'll get into that. But when you're manifesting something different, you can tell. Like currently, somebody that I know has the option to move out of their current home situation. So when they're spending time with a certain person, they're feeling more joyous, more peace, they're happier. And then there's this strong contrast when they're not, together with this person. They go back to a home situation because this person has manifested a home, and it's peaceful and it's beautiful, and it's like the sort of situation that somebody has wanted, like both people have wanted. But this one person, not the person living in the home, but the one person has spent time there with this person versus at their current home, which is chaotic, and they're an individual that is sensitive to their home surroundings and is really needing something more comfortable. So there is a bit of a contrast where you can choose in certain moments where you're like, ooh, this just doesn't feel right, and you've got tension in the body, or when it feels really right and you're opening up and you're like, yeah, that feels good. Sort of like spending time together with this person in this new place feels good, but sometimes it can bring up some mental thoughts when you go home and you experience the contrast of, oh gosh, maybe I can't get out of my situation, or how can I get to, like it's difficult to be away from that person because they're at home, there's all this chaos. How can I get to this situation over here? So that particular individual who's manifested solutions is sometimes like, oh goodness, like at home is uncomfortable, but at her place is really great. At home is uncomfortable, at her place is really great. It was the same scenario when I personally was moving from working for somebody else to going full-time into working for me. That was a very fast process, a little bit more uncomfortable than what I was, moved faster than I was kind of comfortable with, but I rolled with it because things shift pretty quickly for me as well. But sometimes you feel that where you're like, the old job, oof, this just does not feel good. That's how you know you're not supposed to be there. Your body will get really tense, to where it's like, oh yes, the freedom. It's sort of like the same thing if you've just spent time. You've all experienced this in some period of time in your life, but you'll have these periods of like it's tension and then it's open, and then it's tension and then it's open. And sometimes it's just important for you to understand that you're manifesting something new into your life, and to keep heading towards what feels good. What I've sometimes seen is that somebody will go back to the negative and sit in the negative and wait for their situation to change, not realizing that being around that positivity can be specifically what's the springboard into something that's really fabulous. Also, sometimes it can bring up when you're around somebody who has these wonderful things. Watch those thoughts. If you think that you can't manifest it, it's in your life to show you that you can. So an example of when you're manifesting out of something, and sometimes it's just there's that frustration because you just can't force it to work. That's usually you coming out of, it can be a couple different situations, but when you're manifesting something new, you can be like, man, that job just isn't working anymore, and it's time to move into something different. That isn't a signifier that it is a dark night of the soul. It just means that somebody doesn't necessarily know that it's time to move out of this one situation and into another. It's just like somebody that I know with their living situation. It's like this better situation, they've reacted in a certain kind of way and are still going back and forth. So the contrast can be a lot. Just keep realizing if you focus on where it is that you want to go, you can get there more quickly. Don't cut out the good thing because you're dealing with the bad thing over here, okay? That's just kind of how that works. Now, dark night of the soul is something completely different. And this is something where you are shedding old ways of being. It's sort of like, it's kind of a part of an awakening process. And some people have several dark nights of the soul, but it's different from releasing resistance. There's resistance with dark night of the soul that's being released, but it's different from when you're manifesting out of a situation and into something different. There is a description from Alana Fairchild from her Light Worker Oracle book. It's the guidebook that goes with, she has a card that's about dark night of the soul. And I just want to read the description to you because it's a little bit different. And so I guess it's more, her words are just really beautiful about it, because it's more with the dark night of the soul, it's more letting go of certain beliefs. It's letting go of more of like limiting kinds of issues. Manifesting into something new is because you've already let go of limiting beliefs. So it's slightly different. It's just, they want to say this, just because somebody's suffering with a shift in their life doesn't mean it's a dark night of the soul. So don't just throw that term at it. But her description, when this card comes up, she says, you're ready for a more real and radiant relationship with the divine. Because the dark night of the soul is all about your relationship with the divine. It says your preconceived ideas and safe limiting beliefs may be sacrificed in order for this to happen. To the divine, the lettering is really small. These are only the clothing of your spirit. They are impediments to the absolute intimacy the divine seeks within you. You might feel vulnerable or uncertain as the divine goes about stripping away those barriers. This is when you enter the dark night of the soul and you understand there is nothing to rely upon but the divine, and you'll find it difficult to trust at times. This night will end, however, and the sweetness of the divine dawning in your heart shall render all worthwhile. But for now, you are meant to feel exactly as you feel. You are not doing something wrong. You are moving closer to the divine. So you see how they're both shifts in your life. And sometimes they both can involve suffering. But one is because you've already chosen something different, and one is because it's having to do with trusting the divine in terms of releasing limiting beliefs. if you get to a certain point where in a dark night of the soul where you've got certain beliefs for the first time in terms of trusting the divine and how that is shifted, it can be a little bit, scary. So the dark night of the soul has to do with your relationship to the divine. So does manifesting, shifting out of manifesting, but that isn't what's being repaired. What's happened is you've got a strong relationship with the divine and you're shifting out of something. So you see how the situations are a little bit different. It's just the one person was like trying to say, I think, to her friend that, just surrender to the process, but it came across a little aggressively. And, sometimes when people don't know what's happening in their lives, that's when it's time to, invest in a psychic advisor that's like, okay, I need some clarity here because there's a lot of emotion and I'm not really sure what's happening. And that's when it can be really helpful, is when you've got somebody who's got a clear point of view that's like, oh yeah, here's what's happening, and use it in a way that's empowering for the individual to have clarity around, oh, okay, so that's what that shift is. And here's the best way to go about that mentally and through actions that I can take. And it's just like, oh yeah, you're just manifesting something new because you decided at this point over here, and it wasn't anything. Somebody's like, but I didn't spend hours manifesting. No, but you had a day where you were sitting at your desk and you're like, I want to have more fun at work. And then they said, okay, maybe that's not happening in this environment, so we're going to, invest in a new one. And then in terms of manifestation, where some of the action comes in, is putting out your application. Because the thing is, you don't have to commit to, leaving your current job if you're putting out applications going, let's try something different, So let's see what's out there. Is there something more fun that's a better fit? And that's when, sometimes you just tune in and get quiet and see what is that? Can that shift in your current environment, or are you manifesting something different? Because there is a certain amount of wording that you can use in terms of like this or something or someone better. Now, what's interesting is when you word it in that way, sometimes the people around you, if you're willing to like surrender the attachment to it, because if you've really decided what people's personalities are, they're not going to be able to show you something different. So if you say this or someone or something better, with your situation, those people have the ability to raise up to the occasion for you. And that's when you just have a slight shift or an epiphany that people really can rise to the occasion. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. But it's a lot more fun to believe that they can. And but it's okay, because you will know for sure. And if you don't know, that's when you consult with somebody. But be careful when you use certain phrases, and make sure that you understand the phrases that you're using, because this is where these words can do damage. You will always know when it's true for you because your body will relax. For me personally, if somebody says, like, there's somebody I really appreciate for the very first time. He is the only person I've ever met thus far. And he's not even a professional intuitive, but I swear he should be. Is he can call me on something if I'm upset and I'm like projecting on them, or not even really projecting, but just like upset, and we're having a thing and I may not see it, but he can say to me like, oh, it's not me you're upset with, it's this over here. Poof, the anger's gone and the discussion's over. Like, I haven't ever met somebody like that before, but it is absolutely amazing when it's somebody that I'm close to that, that's able to happen. So anyway, gratitude all around for people that are able to really see us at a good, empowering level, because with that particular individual, when he always sees it, he sees it in like the correctness of what it is, and then I'm like, oh, and everything shifts. If it's something that's wrong, your body will tense up. So if somebody's like, oh, it's this, and I'm like, and I start to get frustrated sometimes with people that are discussing certain terms, because I'm just like, yeah, you're just throwing jargon at me because you're trying to help. I'm like, you're not checking it intuitively. So that's when I'm like, okay, this is something different. I either need to check in for me or go to somebody different that's going to tune in intuitively. So, but sometimes even healers need their own healers and intuitives need their own intuitives for stuff in their life, because, emotions get in the way when it's our own stuff sometimes, and sometimes you really do see clearly. So, but yay for the people that can support us in empowering ways, and because it's one thing to say, like, that's your stuff with judgment, and it's one thing to say, something like, oh, hey, let me stop you mid-sentence because this is what's happening here. Like, somebody that I really care for that's able to see that for me and my mind process, because they've got a similar mind process, that can do that. So I wish all of you to be able to have the same sort of thing if that's something that you admire to have. So gratitude to that individual, or to people that, are able to do that in our lives, and to do it with love and kindness. So that is my little rant on the difference between manifestation and dark night of the soul. And thank you to Alana Fairchild for being able to put things in beautiful words. So she works with a lot of the same rays of light and beings of light as well. So yay, awesome. If you would like to work together and that's something that you feel called to do, get in touch with me via my website. My team and I will get back to you to see if that's something that you're interested in. And if you're looking for clarity in terms of a situation, get in touch with us, because we'd love to help you and provide some intuitive insight into your situation, because we all have situations where we're like, I need a little clarity in this. What beings of light are assisting me right now with this, and how can I best move through it? And there's going to be some sort of tool that we'll be able to provide to you. Okay? Lots of love. Bye.